I was elected 9 years ago, and when I was elected, I didn't think much of climate disruption. I mean, I really did think it was a communist plot. I'm a Republican, you know, that's what we thought. And then I met some people who were really in the industry. Bill Gross at Idea Lab out of Pasadena. He built a 5 megawatt, you know, it's a thermal plant with the mirrors pointing up at the boiler. And in meeting him and doing that, that's how I got involved. And he convinced me that this is really something we should read. And I'm really glad we did, because this is Evie up there. And Evie's one of my 5 grandchildren. And she should have an amazing future. An amazing future. First time in the history of the planet, energy is available to everyone. Because we now know how to take it from the sun. We know how to take it from the wind. And every day we get better at it. Up until today, till this era, the history of the world is written by those with access to cheap energy. You know, England had surface coal. They wrote history. We had surface oil. We wrote the history books. Today, everybody has the ability to have inexpensive energy. We just have to get it into their hands. And when I was elected, it had the highest crime rate in the county, as hard as that is to believe. We had the highest gang murder rate outside of Compton. The mortality rate from preventable diseases is the highest in the state. The graduation rate was the lowest in the county. I mean, people didn't really know these statistics were there. And that's the city that I decided I should be mayor of. Well, I was born there, so I did have a connection. And you would think I would be the last person here being able to speak about being the world's alternative energy capital, because that's what we've become in 9 years. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about how we got there. I had a city staff. There was in transition. The old city managers leaving, a bunch of people retired. It was a great time to be there. The people who stayed, they also became true believers that if our grandchildren were going to survive, we individually, every one of us, had to start doing something about it. And so we sat around and we talked about it. We said, could we develop a template for other cities to follow? Because eventually the world is going to wake up to this. And so it became a no-brainer for us. Yeah, we got to fix this in Lancaster. Who would think, right? I mean, the arrogance of it. Even that's attractive, you know? It was like, you couldn't do this. Well, let me tell you, we are. And we're almost to the point now, well, we are to the point now, other cities are coming to us and just letting us do it for them. Because you can make the transition to a net zero city really fast. And we really were the perfect place for it. So we have an engineering culture. Everybody grew up with knowing an engineer. Test pilots were our heroes when I was growing up. And the cultures tend to stay geographically where you find them. So there was an acceptance too, that, yeah, we could do that. We went to the moon, didn't we? You know, that really has that kind of flavor to it up there. And so they were supportive of it 8 years ago. 97% of all the energy in every city facility was generated by solar. 97%. Now that means you put it on the grid during the day and, you know, there's an exchange going on, but only 3% of any city facility, including the stadium that is there. That was 8 years ago. Now, there's a lesson to be learned with all of that, in that to do that, we had to enter into contracts, you know, for the lease of the solar panels. You're all familiar with those. And we got it down to 15 cents a kilowatt. You know what we buy power for now? 6 cents a kilowatt. So there's a volatility there. You never know what's going to happen from one month to the next. But the city manager and the assistant city manager who thought that was a good idea, they're still with us. We forgave them. And what are we only got 6 years more to go, right? I wanted to have a meeting with KB Homes, and I wanted to have a meeting with BYD, and I said, build us a house that's affordable to the average American, the average working American, that is net zero. Nothing comes off the grid. 4 months later, we flipped the switch on that house, and it was the first net zero house in the world. Thank you. BYD came and built a factory for buses. That articulated bus, that was invented in Lancaster. Taking the BYD engineers, the American engineers, 3 months after they opened, they started designing that. 6 months after that, they're in production. Now, why is that significant in the busing world? It's because articulated buses are used for short urban areas, but not when it's batteries. That bus goes back and forth to Lancaster, one charge. How cool is that? Because when you got a really long bus, what do you got? A lot of batteries. Everything you look at differently. $13 a month per street light is what we were paying Edison. The solution? Buy the street lights. We bought all the street lights. We're converting all of them to LED. We're putting Wi-Fi and cell phone service into those street light poles. And all of that, and we still save money on the maintenance cost. It was a net zero transaction, I guess. Didn't cost us a dime because of the money that we save and not having to maintain them. The other thing we did is staff comes to me and they say, hey, we can buy and sell our own power. And the staff, city staff, there's Mark and Jason right there, they decided to create their own electric company, their own power company that buys and sells it. How cool is that? It drove the cost down to where they're now buying it for 6 cents. That's about a 10 cent per kilowatt savings from when we started. And they created this company that does it. And now other cities are coming to us and we're doing it for them. And what did we add? 3,500 people to the workforce. 3,500 people currently employed doing our various solar programs. That's pretty cool because we had a 24% unemployment when I got elected. 24%. The height of the Depression, 25% was the unemployment rate. To give you an idea just how bad 24% can be. We're now under 4. Last week, we passed an ordinance. Well, we didn't actually pass the ordinance. We told them we're going to pass the ordinance. That's what it was. There's 750 homes being built. And this is what's really cool when you're committed. And when you have a committed city staff, and you have committed folks that are now believers as to what's going on out in the world. Is I woke up the morning we were going to approve this project. And I thought, well, wait a minute. That should have a community benefit agreement because that's exactly what it is. We cannot afford to have houses that are not energy efficient. The requirements of what it takes to build a house now have just gone way up. And why have they gone way up? Because we're in a race to save this planet. Not one house should be built that isn't net zero. So Lancaster, the city with the worst crime rate, with all of those things that were wrong with it, now is buying and selling the electricity for these cities. And that's just in the last 2 months. Now, interestingly enough, Palmdale and Lancaster have been at war forever. I mean, they call it the cactus curtain separating the two cities. We hate each other. Look who our second customer was, City of Palmdale. And the reason for that is because it's that much of a savings to your citizens. It's that big of a deal when you take power back to the community. One time, I had a doctor tell me that somebody he doesn't know looked into a microscope and saw something. And I started a journey of, do I burn it out? Do I cut it out? Do I poison it? You know, and I chose one of those things, and it's okay, it worked out. I'm still here. But because somebody I didn't know saw it and said he saw it. The only reason we're not solving this climate disruption, we can't see it. And until we get over that hurdle, it may be too late. Maybe too late now. It's going to take all of our energies, all of our efforts, and just maybe, Evie survives. Thank you.